50 Malaysians to be evacuated from Lebanon. Iran retaliates, firing missiles at Israel in response to aggression. Good afternoon and Salam Malaysia Madani. This is World Today. I'm Shuhaida Arifin. Malaysia's Foreign Ministry, through the embassy in Beirut, is taking steps to evacuate 15 Malaysians and 3 foreign spouses from Lebanon following the deteriorating security situation in the country. The ministry in a statement said 9 Malaysians had already left the country voluntarily, while 4 Malaysians had decided to continue staying in Lebanon. It noted that the embassy will still be in operation with 4 Malaysian staff members until further notice. The ministry also highlighted that Malaysia unequivocally condemns the Zionist regime's continuous aggressions through its airstrikes and ground offensive against Lebanon. It added the Zionist regime's action clearly violates security and stability, as well as the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Lebanon, contravening the United Nations Charter and international law. The ministry emphasized that it is vital for all parties to not exacerbate the already tense situation in the region. It said Malaysia stands in solidarity with Lebanon and joins the overwhelming call by the international community for an urgent ceasefire to prevent further humanitarian catastrophe in Lebanon. Now, Iran has fired ballistic missiles at Israel in retaliation for Israeli killings of leaders and aggressions in Lebanon against the Iran-backed Hezbollah group and in Gaza. Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps said its forces used hypersonic Fatah missiles for the first time, and 90% of them successfully hit their targets in Israel. It added the missile attack targeted 3 military bases around Tel Aviv, as well as air and radar bases. It also said the measure was in accordance with the United Nations Charter. It explained that the attack came after a period of restraint following an attack on the sovereignty of Iran, a reference to the killing of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran in late July. Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian hailed the country's decisive response to the Israeli aggression. Pezeshkian highlighted that the response was taken to defend Iranian interests and citizens in the face of repeated hostilities. He warned that while Iran does not seek war, it will not hesitate to stand firmly against any threats. He also stressed that Israel should take heed of the message, noting that the actions taken were just a small display of Iran's capabilities. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said Iran's action is concluded unless the Israeli regime decides to invite further retaliation. South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol has warned that North Korea's Kim Jong-un would face the end of his regime if he used his nuclear weapons against the South. He said this as Seoul staged a parade showcasing its military prowess in conjunction with Armed Forces Day. Fighter jets flew over countdown Seoul and tanks rolled through the streets as South Korea displayed weaponry, including its largest ballistic missile, the Hyunmo-5, which is capable of destroying underground bunkers for the first time. The event comes as relations between the two Koreans are at one of their lowest points in decades, with Pyongyang declaring the South its principal enemy and moving nuclear-capable weapons to the border.
만약 북한이 핵무기 사용을 기도한다면 우리 군과 한미 동맹의 결연하고 압도적인 대응에 직면하게 될 것입니다. 그날이 바로 북한 정권 종말의 날이 될 것입니다.
Yoon urged the North to abandon the delusion that nuclear weapons will protect them and slammed Pyongyang's recent campaign of flooding trash-carrying balloons into the South, which have caused airport disruptions and triggered small fires. Tensions have escalated in India's Tamil Nadu state as police detain nearly 600 Samsung Electronics workers and union members following a massive street protest over the ongoing strike at the South Korean giant's home appliances plant. More than 1,000 workers have disrupted operations and protested in a makeshift tent close to the factory near the city of Chennai since 9 September. They have demanded higher wages and union recognition at that plant, which accounts for roughly a third of the Samsung's annual Indian revenue of $12 billion. Samsung said the striking workers risk losing their jobs. It previously said the average monthly salary of full-time manufacturing workers at the plant is nearly double that of similar workers in the region, and that it was open to engaging with workers and to resolve the matter. The Centre of Indian Trade Union said Samsung workers earn $300 on average each month and demand a raise of over $400 a month within 3 years. The protests cast a shadow over Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's drive for foreign investors to make in India, and is India's biggest such strike in recent years. Tens of thousands of workers at major ports on the U.S. East and Gulf Coast went on strike in an action that could drag on the world's largest economy just ahead of a November presidential election. The shutdown, the first strike by the International Longshoremen's Association in almost 50 years, affected 36 ports from Maine to Texas, impacting an array of goods from food to electronics. According to the association, about 45,000 workers were on the strike. In Elizabeth, New Jersey, trucks passing by were honking in support of about 200 striking workers, carrying American flags and signs blasting port automation as a job killer. The union was pressing for protection against automation-related job loss and for hefty wage hikes after dock workers kept providing essential services throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. The White House said President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris were closely monitoring the strike, with both briefed on government assessments that impacts on consumers were expected to be limited. However, analysts caution that a lengthy strike could pose a major headwind to the U.S. economy, leading to shortages of some items and lifting costs at a time when inflation has been moderating. ASEAN Secretary-General Dr. Kau Kim On held a video conference with Minister in the Prime Minister's Department, Law and Institutional Reform, Datuk Seri Azalina Othman Said on Tuesday. According to a statement from the ASEAN Secretariat, the two officials discussed, among others, Malaysia's initiatives on international arbitration and third-party funding as the country gears up to take over the ASEAN chair in 2025. Laos, the current ASEAN chair, is set to officially transfer leadership to Malaysia during the ASEAN Summit, which will take place from 8th to 11th October. Established on 8 August 1967, ASEAN now comprises 10 member countries: Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, Philippines, Thailand, Singapore and Vietnam. Timor-Leste is currently awaiting full membership in the bloc. Now in Thailand, at least 23 people were killed when a school bus carrying more than 40 students and teachers on a field trip caught fire in the outskirts of the capital, Bangkok. The fire engulfed the coach on a highway in a northern Bangkok suburb as it carried 38 children ranging from kindergarten age to young teenagers and 6 teachers on a school trip to a science museum. Officials said the disaster is believed to have begun when one of the bus tires burst on the highway around 12:30 p.m. local time, sending it crashing into a barrier and triggering the inferno. Rescue workers put up screens around the wreckage to shield firefighters and investigators as they recovered bodies from the blackened shell of the bus. Head of the Police Forensic Science Office, Cherirong Pimpuan, said the victims' bodies were so badly burned that it was not yet possible to confirm the number of adults and children killed in the tragedy. DNA testing would be needed to identify the remains. Some of the children who survived suffered horrific burns to their faces, mouths, and eyes. Police are also hunting the coach driver after he fled the scene. The incident is believed to be the deadliest road accident in a decade in Thailand, which has one of the world's worst traffic safety records, with around 20,000 fatalities a year. Facebook parent Meta will produce its next-generation virtual and augmented reality headsets in Vietnam, creating more than 1,000 jobs. The announcement comes as Vietnam looks to boost its attractiveness as a destination for investment by the world's biggest companies and a key part of the global supply chain. Speaking at a tech conference in Hanoi, Meta's Global Affairs President Nick Clegg said the firm would focus on the production of the Quest 3S headset in the Southeast Asian country. Vietnam, a long, low-cost destination to make clothes, shoes and furniture, is eyeing a rapid climb up the global supply chain, and last week the government said Elon Musk's SpaceX plans to invest $1.5 billion in the country. Vietnam's top leader To Lam used a trip to New York last month to meet bosses from Apple, Meta and IT firm Supermicro. He also met President Joe Biden a year after the U.S. leader made a high-profile state visit to Vietnam to boost diplomatic and trade ties. Vietnam is particularly intent on developing its capabilities in the lucrative chip industry, with global supply chain shocks and fears about U.S. reliance on China for key resources boosting investment there. Still ahead, Japanese parliament confirms Ishiba as new premier. Shigeru Ishiba was formally voted by parliament as Japan's prime minister following his victory in one of the closest ever leadership races for the ruling Liberal Democratic Party. Ishiba said he intends to call for a general election on 27th October. Ishiba won a tight race on Friday to lead the Liberal Democratic Party, which has governed almost continuously for decades. The former defense minister outlined his policies at a news conference, warning that the security environment surrounding the country is the most severe since the end of the World War II. He stated that Japan will expand the circle of friendly and like-minded countries using diplomacy and defense to realize the peace of Japan and the region. Ishiba's new cabinet of 19 ministers was also announced after the parliament approved his appointment. Just 2 were women and have historically been poorly represented in politics and business in Japan. Foreign Minister Yoko Kamikawa, one of 5 women in the outgoing cabinet, was replaced by Takeshi Iwaya. Katsunobu Kato, who was health minister during the COVID-19 pandemic, was named finance minister, while Gen Nakatani took defense. Claudia Sheinbaum was sworn in as Mexico's first woman president, vowing to bolster women's rights and ensure that Latin America's number 2 economy remains a secure destination for international investment. Sheinbaum, a 62-year-old scientist and former mayor of Mexico City, took the oath of office and received the presidential sash in a boisterous ceremony in Mexico's Congress, which marks the start of a 6-year term. Sheinbaum used her first speech as head of the state to address investors' concerns after the passing of a judicial reform pushed by her predecessor, Andrés Manuel López Obrador. She reiterated the central bank would be autonomous and told investors that the investments of national and foreign shareholders will be safe in the country. Sheinbaum's government will present its first budget before 15 November, which is expected to be highly scrutinized for clues on whatever she will make good on commitments to reduce the fiscal deficit to 3.5% of gross domestic product from 5.9%, where it is predicted to close this year. The new president will also have to deal with the spiraling criminal violence in the country, much of it linked to drug trafficking and gangs. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has survived a second vote of no confidence in as many weeks, brought again by his main Tory rival intent on unseating his beleaguered Liberals. The 207-121 vote was largely a repeat of the Conservatives' failed attempt last week to trigger snap elections, which saw two smaller factions in Parliament siding with Trudeau's minority government. The motion accused the government of failing to address a housing crunch, rising crime and cost of living, and of being the most centralizing government in Canadian history. With a 20-point lead in public opinion polling, Tory leader Pierre Poilievre has been itching to go to the polls since the leftist New Democratic Party last month tore up a coalition agreement with the Liberals, leaving the Trudeau administration vulnerable to being toppled. But the New Democratic Party and other opposition parties, whose support is needed to bring down the Liberals, have pushed back against its right-wing agenda. Trudeau swept to power in 2015 and has managed to hold on through two ballots in 2019 and 2021. However, his popularity has plunged and he has faced a number of setbacks in recent months, including by-election losses in two of his party's strongholds. Taiwan today shut down schools and closed its financial markets as Typhoon Krathon pounded its south and east with torrential rains and winds ahead of its expected landfall. Krathon packing sustained wind speeds of 173 kilometers per hour and gusts of up to 209 kilometers per hour is now expected to make landfall early tomorrow near Kaohsiung or Tainan, nearly a day later than previously expected. Offices and schools across the island were closed, and the Interior Ministry said nearly 10,000 people had been evacuated from vulnerable areas as a precaution. All domestic flights and ferry services were cancelled, and some airlines suspended flights from Taiwan to Japan, Hong Kong, the Philippines, and South Korea. The Defence Ministry said nearly 40,000 troops were on standby for relief efforts. Next up in sports, JDT shocked Shanghai Shenhua in Asian Champions League Elite. Well, it was a dream come true for Malaysia's pro cycling rider Muhammad Syawal Mazlin. Syawal became the first national cyclist to cross the finish line in Stage 3 of the Le Tour de Langkawi 2024, also known as the Queen Stage. The 19-year-old of Brinchang finished 44th out of 127 riders who competed in the 170.3 kilometers stage from Taiping to Cameron Highlands. The Cameron Highlands native, who is well versed with every twist and turn along the route, also made the right decision before powering away during the climb, although he was no match for the best climbers from Europe and South America. Earlier, Britain Max Pool of Team DSM Firmenich Personnel won Stage 3 of the LTDL in 4 hours, 24 minutes and 34 seconds. Experts climbers Harold Martin Lopez of Astana Kazakhstan team and Thomas Pesante of JCL team Ukyo finished second and third respectively. Today's fourth stage race covers a distance of 131.2 kilometers from Kuala Kubu Baru to Bentong, offering 3 sprint zones at Raup, Sungai Ruan and Sungai Klau. Johor Darul Takzim recorded their first victory in the Asian Champions League Elite in emphatic fashion by defeating Chinese club Shanghai Shenhua FC 3-0 in their second match last night. In the action that took place at the Sultan Ibrahim Stadium, the Southern Tigers squad, coached by Hector Bigdoglio, took a comfortable lead through Arif Aiman Mohamed Hanafi's goal in the 11th minute. In the 23rd minute, Shanghai Shenhua's goal was conceded again, but Oscar Ariba's goal was disallowed immediately after the video assistant referee review found that Arif Aiman, who sent the ball, was in an offside position. However, JDT did not grieve for too long when Jorge Leandro Obregon managed to head the ball into the visiting team's goal in the 26th minute to make it 2-0. Now, JDT scored the third goal through Juan Muniz Gallego's free kick from outside the penalty box in the 80th minute. Arsenal beat Paris Saint-Germain 2-0 in their heavyweight Champions League duel early tomorrow, while last season's beaten finalist Borussia Dortmund gave Celtic a brutal reality check with an emphatic 7-1 win in Germany. Dortmund were the biggest winners on a night which also saw Barcelona, Manchester City and Bayer Leverkusen claim one-sided victories. The clash between Arsenal and French champions PSG in London was the big game of the day as the second round of matches in the new format of European football's elite club competition got underway. The Gunners were worthy winners of the Kai Havertz heading in from a Leandro Trossard cross to open the scoring on 20 minutes and Bukayo Saka doubling their lead before half-time as his free kick delivery from the right evaded everybody in its way. PSG saw Nuno Mendes strike at the outside of the post from range in the first half, while João Neves hit the woodwork after the break, but the visitors could not get back into the game. It is the first win in the Champions League this season for Mikel Arteta's Arsenal, who drew goalless away to Atlanta on match day 2 weeks ago. Meanwhile, Dortmund are currently on top of the 36-team league after trouncing Scottish champions Celtic 7-1 in Germany. Karim Adeyemi scored a hat-trick in the first half for Dortmund, who were 5-1 ahead at the half-time. Amrigan opened the scoring from the penalty spot before Dazen Maeda equalised, but Adeyemi then took centre stage. Sergio Grassi netted a penalty before the interval and made it 1-6 midway through the second half, with substitute Felix Mencha wrapping up the victory late on. It is Dortmund's biggest win margin in the Champions League alongside a 6-0 win away to Legia Warsaw in 2016. Winners of the Champions League in 2023, Pep Guardiola's City were comfortable 4-0 winners away to Slovan Bratislava in Slovakia. The scoreline did little justice to the visitors' dominance as Ike Gundogan and Phil Foden struck within the first 15 minutes to set City on their way in the Slovak capital. Erling Haaland added his 42nd Champions League goal in 41 appearances before James McCarthy registered his first goal for the club. Bayer Leverkusen showed attacking flair and then defensive grit to see off AC Milan 1-0 at home, continuing their perfect start to life in the competition. The decisive moment in the match came early in the second period when Leverkusen's victory Boniface showed his striker's instinct to follow in an effort at goal and empathetically hand Xabi Alonso's side the 3-point. Leverkusen, beaten Europa League finalists in May, have continued their excellent form from last season, winning both of their matches in Europe's top club competition with 5 goals scored and 0 conceded. But it was a second defeat in 2 Champions League outings for 7-times winners Milan after they lost 3-1 at home to Liverpool in match day 1. Robert Lewandowski struck twice for Barcelona as they demolished Young Boys 5-0 to bounce back from a loss at Monaco a fortnight ago. It took Barcelona just 8 minutes to move ahead, with Lewandowski applying a poacher's finish to Rafinha's cross shot. Jules Koundé hammered over and Ferran Torres had a shot safe as Barcelona dominated, but Young Boys carved out a first opening after 30 minutes when Abrima Kohli pulled an effort wide. Rafinha, enjoying a strong start to the campaign, doubled Barcelona's lead from close range after Pedri's shot was blocked, but the ball ricocheted to his feet. Centre-back Inigo Martinez headed home Barca's third from Pedri's free kick shortly afterwards as the Catalans overran their ragged visitors. Lewandowski netted his second with a close-range header after Martinez had nodded Lamine Yamal's corner back across the face of goal. A late Muhammad Ali Kamara own goal wrapped up the victory. In tennis, France's Arthur Fils came back from a match point down to win the Japan Open with a crazy 5-7, 7-6, 6-3 victory over countryman Ugo Humbert. Fils, the world number 24, came back from the brink of defeat in the second set to edge his Paris Olympic doubles partner in 3 hours 4 minutes in Tokyo. It gave the 20-year-old Fils his third career title and second this year, following his success in Hamburg. Fils admitted that he had a lucky escape when he faced match point in the second set tie-break. He survived it to level the match before breaking Humbert for a 5-3 lead in the final set, leaving him serving for the championship. He clinched the victory on his first match point with an ace down the center before collapsing to the ground. Humbert, the world number 19, lost the final for the first time in his career, having won the previous 6. He was bidding to become the first player in ATP Tour history to win his first 7 finals. Elsewhere, Yannick Sinner of Italy and Spain's Carlos Alcaraz won their semi-finals at the China Open to set up a mouth-watering final. Top seed Sinner was made to fight hard for his place against China's world number 96, Bu Yunxiao-KT. The world number 1 eventually coming out on top 6-3, 7-6 in a match lasting 2 hours and 7 minutes. Bu had Sinner under pressure on the Italian's serve early in the first set, but Sinner stayed off the thread and the storm gradually blew itself out as the set wore on. They went to the tie-break in the second set, with Sinner sending down his 11th ace of the contest to convert his third match point. World number 3 Alcaraz earned his spot with a 7-5, 6-3 win over Russia's Daniil Medvedev. Alcaraz drew first blood when he broke last year's finalist Medvedev for a 3-2 in the first set. Alcaraz looked in the mood, cupping his ear to a capacity crowd after emerging from one scintillating rally. Then they failed to hold serve for 3 games in a row, leaving the set poised at 4-all. Third-seeded Medvedev became increasingly frustrated after a couple of calls failed to go his way, and Alcaraz broke for 6-5, then hauled to wrap up the set in 48 minutes. Alcaraz broke for a 3-2 lead in the second set, after which Medvedev had treatment from the physio on his left leg. He had more treatment at 3-4 down as his hopes slipped away, Alcaraz getting the job done on his 4th match point. Alright, and that wraps up World Today. In our top story, 15 Malaysians to be evacuated from Lebanon. Tune in to Malaysia Tonight coming up at 8:30 p.m. on TV1 and saluran Berita RTM. From river to the sea, Palestine will be free. I'm Shuhaida Arifin. Thank you for watching.